Welcome to CareCast, CareNet's podcast on family, faith, and life with Roland, CareNet's president and CEO, and Vincent DiCaro, CareNet's chief outreach officer. CareCast and more pro-abundant life commentary from CareNet can be found at care-net.org, where you can watch videos, download ebooks, and subscribe to the Abundant Life blog. Now let's listen in on what Roland and Vince have for us this week on CareCast.
Well, Roland, this is actually a first. This is the first CareCast podcast in which we are actually including video of ourselves.
That's true.
Recording.
I actually have never seen you before.
That's right.
So who are you again?
I'm Vince.
Okay. Normally I try to make sure I turn my back to you when you come in. So I've actually never seen your face before.
When it's only audio, you can take those kinds of liberties.
Yeah,
I think.
I've been doing that for years and years, and this is what you look like.
You know, I was actually looking back at the archive of CareCast episodes. We've been doing this for I think 6-7 years now. Can you believe that?
Wow.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
We've had quite a few episodes.
Quite a run.
It's been a good run.
Yeah.
It might even be more than that. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So,
that is something.
Yeah.
And all that time, me not looking at you.
I know. Yeah. You've managed to avoid eye contact.
I just shun you constantly.
It's like Medusa. You know, if you look at Medusa, you turn to generally people try to avoid looking at her. If I had a nickel for every time somebody told me that. So this is great. No, this is an exciting, I think, kind of development for our podcast where folks can actually kind of see how the sausage is made, so to speak. Yeah. And then we can also, we also have all kinds of things that we could show people, like your book, which is proudly displayed back there, and we have some other props that we'll be able to bring up during the recording as well. So
and maybe even other people.
Maybe even people.
We'll just bring people in.
There could be somebody hiding under this table right now that will just appear.
That's part of the ministry.
It's part of the ministry. That's right.
These are the secrets. Yeah. See, we don't want people to know all these things.
True. Yeah. We'll have to reveal them slowly
over time.
Yeah. So this is our first one with video. So it's exciting, and I think we have a really sort of interesting topic to talk about today. That's I think at first glance, folks would say, well, what does that really have to do with abortion? That sounds just
like most of the stuff we talk about.
Right. But we somehow manage, if you could stretch enough with us, you'll see the point we're trying to make. But you had actually sent this article to me. It was, and I apologize if I'm going to say this gentleman's name wrong, but his name is John McGlean.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's exactly how it's pronounced, but he wrote a really great article for World Magazine called "Your Truth," in quotes, "Your truth is a lie. America has forgotten that truth and comfort are not synonyms."
Yeah.
And it was a fascinating commentary on our culture about how this notion of everyone having their own truth, which really it's been around for a little while, but I think Oprah Winfrey sort of popularized it and really brought it into the lexicon as a phrase that people use quite a bit. That notion of everyone having their own truth has really permeated our culture and done quite a bit of damage in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really has. It's actually a reflection of really kind of the extension of postmodernism. I mean, actually, it is the reflection of postmodernism, right? Because the whole notion with postmodernism is this notion that there aren't no objective truths, all are subjective, and so if a writer wrote something years ago and you're looking at it and you're reading it, like it used to be sort of like what you wrote, that's what you meant, right? But now in a postmodern perspective, it's like, no, actually what you wrote is not, I can determine what you meant by what you wrote. Right. So I can reinterpret what it is that you've done. In other words, I can make your truth basically my truth. And the bigger challenge with that is that my truth trumps your truth. So if that's really what you meant, the reality is that actually what I think that you should have meant, it actually becomes, quote, what the truth is. Right. So it's kind of an extension of that, and it really got popularized with that perspective.
Yeah, so basically we have, how many people in the United States of America? 330 million, whatever the number is. But so we have 330 million, truths competing with each other constantly. And again, as you noted, the problematic part of that is that all of those truths are considered equally valid.
Yes.
And depending on the issue, some more valid than others, right?
Yes.
So certain, groups might have more credibility around certain topics, and so their personal truth actually becomes other people's truths, even though they, of course, have their own personal truth around that. And so it just becomes a mess, right, when everyone kind of has their own truth. In fact, I think there's a small section of the article that I'll read word for word, and then I think...
You're going to read it truthfully.
I'm going to read it truthfully. This is actually what he wrote and what he meant.
And then I'm going to challenge him.
Right. That's not my truth, yeah. So, and then I think we can tie this into the abortion issue, okay? So he writes, this isn't left versus right. This isn't theology versus science. This is about the fundamental fabric of reality, and it's unraveling. Americans no longer agree on what happened, what exists, or what basic words mean. Every person is now the final authority on the universe they've constructed in their head. I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Your truth no longer means share your perspective honestly. It means your perspective is automatically valid, immune from criticism, and equal to all others. Every opinion becomes sacred. Every disagreement becomes oppression.
Yeah.
I think for most folks who have been following what's been happening in our culture over the last several years, that sounds very, very familiar, right?
Oh, absolutely, because you can't debate. Because it's not like, so, okay, truth is over here, and we're like having this conversation about this objective thing, and it's not personal to me or personal to you. So if I say, well, this isn't right, then it's not an attack on you, it's basically an attack.
You're debating that thing.
Right. But if truth becomes personal, then every conversation where you disagree becomes a personal attack.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've all agreed, we've almost all sort of agreed in an unsaid, we haven't said it out loud, but it just sort of this silent agreement that we actually have no mechanism by which to understand that these are only personal disagreements.
Yes.
Because obviously there's always, personal disagreements have always existed, right? But there was at least this notion that there actually was such a thing as an objective truth that was out there somewhere, even though we might not necessarily agree on what it is. Now we've even thrown that notion out. And I think one of the best analogies I've heard you say is, if there are two people in a room and one of them says they feel really hot and the other one says they feel really cold, the thermometer is the objective truth, because it tells you what the temperature actually is. And so if it's 90 degrees in the room and I'm sitting here shivering saying that I'm cold, and I say, well, this room is cold. My truth is that this room is cold. You can disagree and kind of think that maybe that's a little bit weird. But we can at least know, and I think this was probably true at some point, we can at least know that we can at least trust the thermometer as being an actual authority. Now, I, as the person who feels cold in a 90-degree room, will say that the thermometer is completely irrelevant.
Oh, it's biased.
The thermometer is biased, it's wrong, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what the truth is, because my truth is, and so that's the fundamental change in the nature of how people argue and discuss issues.
What people used to do is that you looked for an objective standard, and then you aligned your opinion, right, which is a word that doesn't get used as much as it should, your opinion to the actual fact. And that's actually what creates a conversation, civility within a culture, like that perspective, that there is some objective perspective, and then the narrative that we kind of shared, okay, this is what you think, this is what I think, and whatever, and then we look to the objective standard, and then we go, okay, we both align ourselves. Because the reality is that we both could have opinions, and we both could be wrong. I could think it's 60 degrees, you could think it's 160 degrees, and then we go look at the thermometer, and it says that it's 70 degrees, and what do? We both align ourselves. That was kind of a shared understanding of how we thought about things, and increasingly that's not
now
true.
The thermometer would be considered oppressive.
Oppressive, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's oppressive.
Right, because you even introduced this concept that was objective.
So
now the crazy thing about all this, of course, is that you can walk around thinking that there's not objective truth, but you don't act that way.
No.
I mean, you can jump off a building and say, well, listen, I don't believe that gravity affects that. My truth is gravity doesn't affect, and you jump. And that's really where a lot of these things kind of, where the rubber meets the road, if you will, on a lot of these things, because there is a truth separate and distinct from what you feel or believe.
Right, absolutely.
Like you can't exist you can't even exist if you don't understand that. You wouldn't be able to take a step because you've got to have a certain objective perspective about this is firm or this is not firm. So it's this weird kind of double-mindedness that the Bible talks about, unstable in all your ways, because if you don't accept that there is objective truth, then you actually can't exist. You can't, like it's really...
So we're very selective about where we apply the reality that there is reality. And where we don't.
Exactly. And this is where, the abortion issue starts coming, because we start to see this in particular, this framework of not objective and this, that, and the other, with things that have to do with sexuality, things that have to do with gender. Like moral constructs. That's where we tend to really kind of, well, wait a minute, that's your opinion. That's not opinion. This is my truth. That's where a lot of that starts to come into play.
For sure.
And that's where as we kind of link it back to the abortion issue. It's kind of what you're thinking about.
Absolutely, yeah. And so I think this notion that committing the act of abortion actually relies on people creating their own truth in order to justify an act that objectively does things that are undesirable. In fact, it objectively does things that are undesirable even to people who support abortion.
Yeah.
But they're very selective in terms of where they apply their understanding of truth and reality, right? And so a couple of the things that I think are worth talking about that are sort of objectively wrong, and most people would agree are objectively wrong, are that killing an innocent human being is wrong, right? Sacrificing the vulnerable for yourself is wrong.
For the powerful, right?
Right, yeah. Denying the voiceless a voice is something that's wrong. That's considered something you shouldn't do. The powerful taking advantage of the vulnerable, right? Things that people would consider wrong. So, but abortion does all of those things.
And particularly the people who have this perspective that there is no objective truth.
Right.
Like those things that you just mentioned, they're the biggest advocates for those things. All their social justice perspective, it's all built on these things.
Yeah, indeed. And so, but abortion does all those things, and therefore you need to create your own truth in order to justify abortion, because there's a cognitive dissonance that the truth would actually, I would be violating all of these things by the act of abortion. So therefore, let me create my own truth in order to justify this. And so that's kind of the connection here, where this, I don't know, what's the right word for something like this? Not a disease that's sort of infiltrated our culture, but
it's deception.
Yeah.
It's it's interesting because all sin, it goes all the way back to the garden. I mean, if you think about the conversation that Satan had with Adam and Eve, God had given them an objective truth and an objective standard. And what did Satan do? Quote, did God really say that?
Right.
In other words, he took this objective truth, this objective standard, and said, wait a minute, hold on a second. There's some subjectivity here. Like there's not objective truth.
Right.
You create your truth. So Adam and Eve said, well, our truth is that if we grab and eat this fruit, that it'll be, good for gaining wisdom, pleasing to the eye, all these
Mm-hmm.
So this is not really, I mean, it's permeated the culture, but it's something that's existed. It's as old as sin.
That's right.
This notion of man wanting, quote, to create his own truth, his own reality, in order to justify.
Yeah, and so we kind of listed out some of the truths that you have to create for yourself in order to justify abortion. And these, of course, are things that are not actually true, but they can be somebody's truth, at least for a season, right? First, the unborn child is not a human life. You have to believe that. The woman that's pregnant with this particular unplanned pregnancy or whatever the situation might be, I'm actually more vulnerable than an unborn baby.
Yeah.
You'd have to believe that, right? It's a clump of cells. That's another truth that you'd have to create for yourself. It's not a person, therefore it doesn't have rights and it doesn't have a voice.
Yeah.
Right? So those are truths that people create for themselves in order to justify abortion, both men and women, obviously, right? Yeah. The man who supports the decision, the woman who has the abortion, they're telling themselves these truths in order to justify this decision.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it goes all the way back to the garden. You had to come up with those things. And the interesting thing too, which if you just in terms of like how the culture sort of thinks about things, I think part of this is absolutely connected to the fact that we've shifted what we consider the highest human virtue. It's not love. It's actually tolerance, right? Tolerance. That's the highest human virtue, right? And, I wrote a little book about this. Actually, this book that I wrote, a little booklet I wrote some years ago, Are Christians Called to Be Tolerant? What would Jesus say? And I kind of walk through kind of four perspectives about Christians, how we're not actually called to be tolerant, that we're actually called to love. And that tolerance is a lower standard than love, right? That kind of a thing. And the fact that, in a secularized culture, we want the aspects of love, but you can't get love without God, and we don't want God.
So you can't get love without truth either.
And you can't get love without truth.
right.
Exactly. So we don't want any of that, but we still want this feeling, if you will. And so we create tolerance. And one of the things that I talked about in that book was that tolerance does not rejoice in truth. Like in 1 Corinthians 13, was it say love does all these different things. Love is not all these things. But one of the things it says that love rejoices in truth. In other words, love, when it sees truth, it's like,
that's it.
It rejoices in truth. Like you cannot have love without truth. Now you can have tolerance without truth, and in fact, tolerance actually rejects objective truth.
Right.
Because
the truth doesn't matter.
The truth doesn't matter.
Whether there's a truth or not, it's irrelevant.
It does not. So you can, again, this all goes back to, like, if you think about a biblical narrative, a biblical worldview, that's part of the issue. And I think this other aspect that's really kind of, that I talk about in the book a little bit is this notion that the tolerance worldview and kind of what you're hearing with like my truth is basically saying that truth is actually exclusive. Like I can own truth, right? And the reality is that you can't own truth. There's only one who can say my truth, and that's God.
Right.
So the other can say, oh, here's my truth, is actually God, and that's not Oprah, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
So, or anyone else who has that perspective, not to pick on her particularly, but the reality is,
you were on her show 4 times, so
yeah, I know. Yeah. No, fine lady, but
Yeah. We should.
Yeah.
And if anyone's curious, go to YouTube
Yeah.
and search Roland Warren on Oprah. And actually, it's great stuff. It really is great
talking about the fatherhood issue.
Yeah, she actually did a really good job allowing you to really sort of talk about the father absence issue and the importance of father involvement.
Absolutely.
They were really, really good shows. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I'll look at your face more often.
Yes. We'll make this a habit. Yeah.
Right. But in this particular case, this notion of my truth, it sounds compassionate and everything. It's like I want to hear your truth. Like it sounds good from that perspective, but words have meanings. And when you say that, you're making a statement that truth can actually be exclusive. Like you could, like
it's pernicious.
An opinion can be exclusive, but truth cannot.
Right.
And the interesting thing about truth, when I think about it, is that, see, truth is actually exclusive and inclusive.
Right.
So it's exclusive in that it can only be one truth, but it's inclusive in terms that everyone can know it.
Right. That's right.
So it's not, truth isn't exclusive by itself. That's how you end up with sort of this perspective that we have. You have to say, no, it's actually exclusive, right, and inclusive simultaneously. And that's what you see in terms of a biblical narrative. That God spoke, He proclaimed the truth, He gave the truth in His word, right? Everyone can know it. Right? So
and I think another one of the things that why this is such a dangerous perspective is just think about the damage this perspective does to the gospel, right? Think about the expression gospel truth, right? That expression was created or invented at a time when there was an agreement that the gospel was truth, like the ultimate truth, like in the definition of truth, right? If there was anything that was true, it was this, right? The gospel, right? So we even created an expression to state that, right? The gospel truth. Again, if everyone's out there creating their own truth, and which depends on the assumption that there's no such thing as an objective truth,
right?
What does that do for the gospel? Right.
Which, of course, is basically the plan.
Right.
Because isn't that what Satan's whole point was? His whole point was that there is no objective truth, and there is no objective truth giver. Truth is all subjective. So if you look at whatever it is, it's pleasing to the eye. Good for gaining wisdom. Like if you believe that, then therefore it is true. But then, like jumping off of a building and everything, what did Adam and Eve find out? Well, actually,
Gravity still works.
There's an objective truth separate and distinct from what you believe. And when you violate those objective truths, there are consequences to that that are not good, and especially for the vulnerable, which we see on the life issue. So.
And so I'll just read the very last sentence of this article, which again was a great article. We're quickly becoming a nation of tiny gods, preaching my truth while burning down the very foundations of knowledge itself, right? And so the gospel cannot fare well in an environment such as that. And obviously, again, that's another connection into CareNet's work, right? Which is that the power, the transformational power of the gospel of Jesus Christ is what CareNet's work is anchored in, around helping people choose life for their unborn children and abundant life for their families, right? So there has to be this gospel truth that we can point to help people understand why it's so important for them to choose life and not choose abortion, right? But in a culture where that's becoming increasingly controversial to even believe that there's such a thing as the truth, our work becomes more challenging.
Well, yeah, and the gospel was, good news.
That's right.
See, in a world with no truth, there's never good news.
Right. That's
Why?
Right.
Because you can't believe it.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So if I came to you and said, hey, I got some good news for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's your good news. That's not my good news.
You never can have good news.
Right. Yeah.
You cannot have good news without objective truth. If I come to you and say, I got some good news, in other words, it's coming from someplace else. I'm delivering it to you, and you, what is it?
Right. And it's good.
And it's good. And you say, oh, great. Oh, and then you find out that there is no objective standard by which I'm operating from. Then you actually can never have good news.
Yeah. Meaninglessness becomes sort of pernicious and pervasive, which is, I think, absolutely what's happening.
And that's
over time, slowly but surely, Yeah. And that's the dangerous part about it, right? Is that it doesn't just happen overnight. These are cultural trends that take decades, and then you kind of look back and you see, oh my goodness, like how did we get here?
How did we get here?
Right. So I think that's a good place for us to stop, and and again Why don't you hold your book up to that camera right there? Yeah, there you go. Okay. Are Christians called to be tolerant?
I'm trying.
What would Jesus say?
Yeah, I'm trying to be like Vanna.
Yeah.
Maybe I should put it in your face because everybody's probably looking at Vince's face anyway.
Yeah. We hope not.
Yeah. So you can get these from CareNet.
Yeah. So if you go to our website care-net.org and click on store. Or bookstore, I believe it says, you'll find that. Or you can just go directly to store.care-net.org. That'll take you right to the bookstore. And you can get that resource and others.
You can get the Why We Must Be Pro-Abundant Life.
That's a good one. And of course, Roland's book, The Alternative to Abortion, which will come up in many of our conversations here at CareCast. That's at rolandwarren.com. So ROLAND. Warren.
Yeah. And you can buy it from Amazon.
Yep, you can buy that on Amazon.
And then we also did a free downloadable Bible study.
That's right.
As well.
Yes.
8 sessions. Love for you to get the book, work through your church, and put a group of folks together to go through it. We have lots of people who are doing that as well.
Yeah.
So
if you get that, download that Bible study again. Go to care-net.org. Click on free resources, and you'll find the Bible study there. You actually get the first chapter of the book for free as well with that.
Look at there.
Yeah,
more money, more money. That's right. It's what we do here.
Yeah, I know. Just an abundance or an embarrassment of riches.
I know. It just right. That's all we do. That's all we do.
I know. But it is a very, very good book. And and I think this issue in terms of what we talked about here today on CareCast, you'll find hints at that throughout the book as well. And so So great. Well, thank you, Roland. This was fun. We got this on video. None of us did anything, I think, that would be inappropriate for the camera.
We haven't embarrassed ourselves.
Which is progress.
Well, maybe we have. Well, we'll have to skip that. We tried not to embarrass ourselves.
We'll get the fan mail. Will tell us whether or not we embarrassed ourselves. So we'll see. All right. Thanks, Roland.
All right.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of CareCast. For more Pro-Abundant Life commentary and practical resources, please visit care-net.org. There you can subscribe to the Abundant Life blog, giving you access to videos, ebooks, podcasts, and other resources to help turn your pro-life passion into pro-abundant life action. Until next time, we pray that God blesses you and yours daily.